Hello everyone, my name is Pillar Pollet and I welcome you back to Concorde Tutorial Series Part 2. For our flight today we are of course going from Heathrow to JFK, and after the intro there I'm going to start talking through what we're doing for the next stages of flight, which include the acceleration to supersonic, the supersonic climb and the Supercruise. So, start off with them, we're just heading up to the waypoint Compton here, which is before where we left off last time, so this is a repeat from last time, just for the next couple of minutes until we get to Compton. So there, we're passing through 10,000 at this point, so of course we're now accelerating up to 350 knots, so I'm looking to the overhead to make sure the lights are off. In that little intro bit there, you'll have seen in the background me running through stuff. At this point I'm looking at tanks 7A and 5A being empty. We're not going to shut them off yet, bear with it. Passing from 10,000 feet though, nothing seems wrong, so we're going to turn the brake fans to the position of off. Because we're happy that we won't be needing them. If we do need them, we can turn them off. I'm looking through the checklist again. The noise abatement checklist, we've already in theory done that. The checklist names are slightly out of shape here, but it is worth reading through them just to remind yourself of anything you've forgotten. It's worth then checking the outside temperature on board the aircraft, which today is just 6 degrees, in case you need to engage your anti-ice or anything. It's worth having a look. Through 10,000 then we're going to start raising the nose, like we did last time. Might be slightly different to last time, but hopefully not too different. The nose gets risen then. As we pass through Compton we switch to INS navigation, switch to INS, and you can see we're heading off to the waypoint Malby. Okay, so in our gap here then to the waypoint Malby, what I'm doing is I'm just climbing up flight level 280 at a speed of 350 knots acquired. I'm going to start accelerating for 384 knots. 384 at 28,000 feet equates to about Mach 0.95. So what we're going to do is just allow it to accelerate to Mach 0.895. So 384 knots. There's no need to decrease our climb rate. It would mean we'd speed up faster. There's no need to though. We've got a long way to go to these waypoints. So therefore it's not really necessary to. We're passing through 14,000 then. Again, we're going to 280. We've got 27 miles to this waypoint and then 50 miles from there for our acceleration point, waypoint Kesup. Waypoint Kesup is just over the Bristol Channel. Like that. Because it's just over the Bristol Channel, at waypoint Kesup we begin our acceleration to the speed of sound. The acceleration phase is quite simple, so I will recuperate with you guys once we're flight level 280. See you in a minute. Right, level 280 then. Oh, apologies, didn't mean to open the iPad. Level 280 then, so we've got 38 miles to run to the waypoint Kesup. From Kesup we begin our supersonic acceleration, which we can see here accelerate to Mach 2. So what we're going to do, for the accelerate, we're going to make sure our engine's share. We don't really need this checklist, but it gives you a good basis to work from. So what we're going to do, when we get to 5 miles, I'm going to disable I'm going to wind in 60,000 feet on here. And on here, I'm going to disable the auto throttle, not touching my throttle, so the throttles remain where they are. As the aircraft begins to turn, as it will, turn to the right, we're going to open up full dry power on the throttle. So we're just going to throttle up to full power and engage the reheats in pairs. So firstly the inboards, then the outboards. As the aircraft starts to accelerate, because we've already winded in 60,000, we'll click altitude acquire and max climb mode. Max climb will climb with the rate that the aircraft will accelerate, and it will keep the speed close to VMO as possible. We're going to dial in 60,000, and our next checklist is going to be at Mach 1.3 to confirm that the ramps are moving. So you can see we're at Mach 0.95 at this point, so we're going to engage Mach hold, as we're now holding 0.95, which, funny enough, at level 280 is 384 knots. It's accelerating slightly there. It seems to always do this on the auto throttles. It doesn't quite hold where you want it to, so we probably should have left it at 384 knots, because that is actually Mach 0.95. So yeah, so you can leave it with the auto throttle holding 384, because that is actually Mach 0.5. But in theory, Mach hold should hold whatever you engage it at when you're doing it. So looking to the overhead then, we've got to quickly check our temperature. So it's 21. So heaters are still required at this point. But we're looking to the overhead, we're making sure we've got everything on, the seatbelt signs are still on before we begin our supersonic acceleration. So, looking into the rear then, we're going to check the fuel, make sure it's all in the centre there, nicely. The de-air pumps are still on for this supersonic acceleration, as there'll be a lot of fuel starting to move around. We'll begin that, and our massive fuel flow rate. So we're checking our engines. On the fuel flow rate here, I'm going to mark it with the fuel flow bug, because this is what we're doing to hold speed at this point. I'm just marking it, it's not a problem, but I'm just going to mark it to see what our rate then increases to as we begin that supersonic. So I'm going to catch you again in with 5 miles to run to Kesup. Okay, we've got 7 miles here then, 6 miles now, so we're going to dial in 60,000. I'm going to deactivate the auto throttle, not touching my throttles. 4 miles now. Waiting for that turn, we're going to have a look. On the chrono, we've got 1 minute 18 worth of afterburners. I was a little bit slow turning them off after takeoff there. You're looking for a minute after takeoff to beat them off. Okay, 2.5. Turn's going to begin any second, so here we go. There goes the turn, so we're going full dry power. Altitude acquire, max climb. Wait for the aircraft to begin pitching up. Pitching up. Reheats 1, 2 and 3. 1 and 4. Engaged in pairs. There goes the fuel flow. You see it racing up. Mach 1. We've passed Mach 1. We're in the max climb mode, so there we go. It's pitching up 7,000 feet per minute. Hold on. It should come back down again to keep us near our VMO. So it's supersonic. 30,000 feet straight through there. We're checking the engines are still stabilised. They certainly are. Overhead looks nice too. There we go, you see it's coming down slightly there, the climb. We're no longer doing 7,000 feet per minute. It's trying to keep us near our VMO. So it's pitching down slightly. There you go, it's dropping even further. And it's just trying to match it. We used to have to do this via vertical speed mode. And it's just trying to match our max speed with the overspeed warning. We used to have to do this with vertical speed because it hadn't developed yet. But it has now developed. So we can confirm we're now supersonic. The afterburners are on and very loud. We're trying to chase that overspeed, Mach overspeed warning. You can see it's come right down on the climb rate there. Dropping down quite low there. Making sure we do not drop away from that. Perfect. Working very well then. We can look back into the rear panel here. Watch the fuel rate, watch the fuel flow. The fuel is dropping down quite quick there. We've still got 74 tons. About what we should have. That's not bad. Good. We're happy. Aircraft working very well then. Accelerating nicely. We're watching that fuel flow. As I said, look where we were before. Look where we are now. We can just reset that now. It's not a problem. Interesting to see how much more fuel. Oops, sorry. You don't want to engage auto throttle. That's not a good idea. Good, so we're now accelerating then. Mach 1.24. Mach 1.3 is approaching. That's our first point of cool after the sound barrier. So, here it comes. The engineer is going to call ramps moving confirmed, and then we'll just talk about what the ramps are for a minute there.
Mach 1.3. Ramps moving confirmed.
Ramps moving confirmed, then we can look back over to here. If we look down a bit, these are our ramp gauges here. Now, these ramp gauges are indicating a little sort of, literally, almost ski ramps, what they look like, on the entrance to the engines. Now, engines can't take in air that's going more than the speed of sound. Therefore, they have to be slowed. The air has to be slowed down. To slow it down, we have these ramps which deploy in front of the engines. By deploying in front of these engines, these ramps slow down the rate of flow into our engines. By doing so, they allow us to take in air and keep the engines running above Mach 1. Now they just deploy and they get more and more the faster you go, and we just have to confirm they're moving, because if they weren't beginning to move, we'd probably turn back, because of course we can't go supersonic. If we can't go supersonic, we can't make it across the Atlantic. So we turn back if they weren't, so we're just checking they're moving. And our next checklist then Yeah, 40,000 feet confirmed. Our next checklist is at Mach 1.7, so I'll see you there. Here we go, Mach 1.7 coming up any second now. Mach 1.7. The reheats are now going to go
I suggest reheat off.
1 and 4, 2 and 3. Gets considerably quieter in the flight deck here. We're going to leave it in max climb as the nose will now pitch down, because of course we're going to leave full dry power that stays on, but what we've done is just taken off the reheats. So yeah, as I say, it gets significantly quieter now in the flight deck. The nose is going to pitch right down. You'll see we're going down to about 1,400 feet per minute or so. And we can actually going outside for you now and it not be super deafening. We passed through the waypoint after Kesup, so that was waypoint 4. So the aircraft's now tracking towards waypoint 5, got 100 miles to run to waypoint 5. Once up at full speed, Concorde will do about 23 miles a minute. So that's a nice super speed. So we're now looking to pass 50,000 feet doing Mach 2 at the exact same time. So we're going to see 50,000 feet, here the engineer will call 50,000 Mach 2, passing Mach 2. So we want it to be pretty close. You don't want to exceed 51,000 unless you're twice the speed of sound. The aircraft does not perform well when going that fast. So we just don't want to do that. So we're going to make sure the aircraft should do it in max climb mode. It should do that, but if it doesn't, you're going to switch to vertical speed mode. And you're going to reduce your vertical speed. You would reduce your vertical speed to something like 500 feet per minute, allow the speed to build, and then climb again back through 50,000. But because it's trying to keep it near to VMO, it should make sure that doesn't happen. Often you'll find it does not, so just watch out for it and keep an eye on it. That's one of the things that you have to do at this point in Concorde, is monitor, make sure everything's working the way it should be. So we can have a look at the temperature outside then. We can see it's starting to get quite warm. It's about 61 degrees outside, so we're no longer going to start to need our pressure gauges and our heating systems. We're going to wait for the speed to go a little bit more, because at 60 degrees or so we still need a little bit more temperature before we can actually switch off the heaters. But at 50,000 feet we're going to go into cruise mode rating. That's quite an important thing. It runs the engines a lot slower, just to the point they should be running at. So we're waiting for that 50,000. Mach 1.9 at 48,000 feet, 49,000 feet rather. That's not bad. We're on track to break Mach 2 at the right time. It can be pretty close, but as I say, don't go through 51,000 unless you're twice the speed of sound. We can have a look quickly at how much time we were on afterburners for. 6 minutes and 18 seconds. That's pretty good. It shows we were pretty efficient at keeping them on and pretty efficient at making the climb. So that's quite impressive. We've used half of our time. After about 12 minutes you get a warning saying I suggest reheat off. That's because at that point the engine is starting, the heat coming out of the engine.
50,000 feet.
There you go, 50,000 feet. We're not twice the speed of sound yet, so we're going to hold on. We're going to engage max cruise. Disable max cruise, apologies for that, I got it slightly wrong there. We want to wait until we go through twice the speed of sound. Come on. Might have to engage vertical speed here and just drop the nose down a little bit, because the aircraft doesn't know that we should be twice the speed of sound above 50,000. All it knows is it's going to climb as fast as it can, whilst allowing the speed to build. Yep, so we're going to quickly engage vertical speed there, drop the nose. Don't want to pass through 51,000 unless twice the speed of sound, so come on. Drop the nose. It can be a little bit slow to react there. There's 51,000 feet, but Mach 1.98, not bad. So we're going to hover the nose here for a minute. There's passing Mach 2. Now we're through 50,000 feet. We're going to engage cruise and flight ratings. So there's Mach 2. We're just waiting for it to get to Mach 2.02, 2.01.
Overspeed warning.
There you go, throttle back or so max climb and max cruise, and we can turn on the auto throttle. It'll now hold station at the speed we're doing. The max cruise mode is going to climb us so that we don't drop speed. You have to engage both of them, max climb and max cruise, for this cruise between 50 and 60,000 feet, and it's going to just do a cruise climb up. In theory, you should not hit 60,000 feet. However, you might well end up as you pass through St. John's on the other side of the Atlantic. So, there we go, we're through 51,000, Mach 2, welcome to the twice the speed of sound club. The aircraft's now nice and stable, and At this point, if you wanted to, you could go get some tea. It's been about an hour and 20. It's been about an hour since we departed Heathrow or so. So at this point, you could go do whatever. It's been an hour since you had to push back or so. I know it's probably has been about for me. So that's very good. So 52,000, it's climbing nice and gently. We're just going to check I did all those things. We can turn off the seatbelt signs and smoking lines now, because we're nice and gently climbing. We can turn off our pressure static heaters and ADS engine probe heaters, because the temperature outside the aircraft now is 83 degrees, plenty hot enough. We can turn off the tanks for tanks 5A and 7A. I hope you can see what I'm doing alright. If you need to pause the footage and have a look in, you certainly can. I encourage you to do so. Alright, so we're now heading from waypoint 4 to 5. So our next thing we're going to have to do is begin an INS update process. So there are two different types. You can do the INS update, which is what you see done by other YouTubers on their Sievers to keep the INS in alignment. In the Concorde in real life they would do this. However, in Concorde in the simulator it's not necessary, because of course it is not going to get out of alignment over time, as it's a computer. And it's got live tracking and everything, so it won't get out of alignment. So you don't need to do that sort of update. The only update you do need to do is you need to make sure you get an update of the INS. So, of course, it goes in a loop. It's a complete circle. So there we go, making a turn. During the turns, you just want to watch the nose doesn't drop too much and the speed doesn't drop. If so, you can switch to vertical speed and drag the vertical speed up to make sure the nose is pulling in the right direction. Because during the turns, as nice as it looks, it does mean you will lose a bit of speed and potentially a nice climb rate. So watch out for those turns through waypoints. But of course, as I was explaining, the INS is in a loop, so waypoints, imagine 9 dots on a circle. Once you hit waypoint 9, the aircraft will turn back to waypoint 1. And we don't want that. So what we do to stop that from happening is erase the original waypoint 1 with our new waypoints. So waypoint 1 will be replaced by waypoint 10, waypoint 2 by waypoint 11, waypoint 3 by waypoint 12, waypoint 4, waypoint 13, and so on and so forth. You're just replacing it with the new waypoints to make sure that you don't go back to where you came from. Which will be back at Compton, and we don't want that. So that is going to be our next thing, and you're going to do that when you pass through waypoint 6 to waypoint 7. So if you want to know how long it is to waypoint, a nice neat trick to learn is if you go down to the INS, you can literally go distance/time. It'll tell you the distance you've got to cover to your next waypoint. So to waypoint 6, I've got 241 miles. I'll be there in 13 minutes. So I guess I'll see you all in 13 minutes. Okay, hello everyone. We're 24 miles away from waypoint 6, and during this time I thought I'd just tell you sort of what you should be doing during the cruise if you're still sat by your simulator. You want to be just checking that the engines are sat nicely. You want to check that you're still above Mach 2. It's quite easy for the aircraft to drop below Mach 2, and you don't want that to happen. So you just want to make sure that you're always above Mach 2. You want to make sure your climb rate's nice. You're making your way up to 60,000 feet. You're above 50. You're also looking at the back, making sure you're not guzzling too much fuel. Yeah, just sort of, keeping an eye on the plane, make sure it's all nice and good. And then, of course, in 13 miles, as we pass through waypoint 6, you have to begin the INS replacement. So, here we are, then we're about to pass through it. We can watch the mileage tick down. At this point, I've also still got the engines in full throttle mode. Auto throttle should be... oh, it seems to be on. I would...
Auto throttle off.
Yeah, leave it off. Leave it in max climb, max cruise mode. So there we go. There's waypoint 6. So, we're now going to make our way down to the INS. So, replacing the INS is fairly simple. So you scroll to waypoint 1, and here you're going to click 2 to replace them. Ignore the numbers that were in there already. I did this once and I put the wrong waypoints in, so I do apologise. Yeah, that was a mistake on my part. Sorry about that. It's north 4703.0. West 00550. 0.0. Worth checking actually that your waypoint 9 is waypoint 9 on your list, just because sometimes you don't want to end up programming waypoint 1. It will be incorrect. So waypoint 1 we've just programmed as actual waypoint 10. So we now move on to waypoint 11, which is waypoint going to replace waypoint 2. So that is 4610.0 west 0 5 3 0 0.0. I'm going to insert that there. Waypoint 3 then. Waypoint 3 is going to replace replacing waypoint 3, actual waypoint 12. That is 4414 north, 0.0, west, 0 6 0 0 0.0. Insert that there. Waypoint 4. Just go waypoint. Let's run through it. So we got waypoint 9. And make sure is 4610. Waypoint 1 is 4703 2 4610 441014 42. So that's a slight error, I believe in that. Well, that was supposed to be waypoint 4 should be 42466500. So I don't think I programmed that on set. So 3 was correct. Now we need to do number 4. So I'm just making sure I made a mistake earlier. So you just want to make sure when you're replacing these ones, you replace the correct ones. So then waypoint 3 is 4414. Waypoint 4, replacing waypoint 13. So that is now north 4 2 4 6.0 west 6. So that's west. It's gone wrong there. North 4 2 4 6.0 west 0 6 5 0. It's missed the 5 there. This is it. You have to be very slow when programming these things in. So I'll do it one more time. Otherwise I'll cut this bit out. So sorry for that. 4246.0 west 0 6 5 0. It's worth making sure you get it right though, otherwise you'll find you're not heading anywhere near where you would like to be heading. So make sure you get it right. Waypoint 5 then. North 4 2 0 0.0 west 0 0 6 7 0 0.0. Now I can only insert 5 waypoints because the Concorde works its route out by drawing a line between waypoint 6 and 7 and following that line. If we replace waypoint 6, we will have an issue with our navigation. So basically what's going to happen now, the rest of the cruise is that after each waypoint, so when we pass through waypoint 7 and we're then heading from 7 to 8, I can replace waypoint 6. Now I'll just turn to 6 and replace it. Make sense? That's what we're going to do there. So every time you pass through a waypoint, you're then going to replace it with the next waypoint on your list. So it's worth writing it down sometimes and then crossing off as you move through. That's what I sometimes do. So we have a look on the quick map here. Oh, why are we going that way? Don't know what's going on with my view there. Apologies. We have a look on the map here. You can see the iPad has the route in. The iPad takes the route from the INS. If you program your INS, you'll see the route come up in here. That can be quite helpful. So during my streams and things, I use an iPad. It's a nice way to see where you are. So you can see we're off the coast of Ireland there, heading right across the Atlantic. Very nice and neat order. So again, just monitoring the fuel, and after each waypoint, replacing that waypoint. So we only got 32 miles to run to the next waypoint because of all the faffing I did. So yeah, I will see you at the next waypoint then. So there we are, we've passed through waypoint 7. So if we go into the INS, same process repeated as before. Rolling through. Waypoint 6 we can now replace because we went through this. We got waypoint 5 replaced as 4200 north. So I'm just checking my list again. We don't have any errors. 4200 north. So now we're going to put in waypoint 6. Waypoint 6 being Kenda north. Let's take a while. 399211.2 west 0703010. And insert. I hope you guys, when you do this, are better at doing it than I am. Yeah. So the list will be in the description. So then, if you want to copy it out onto a piece of paper or something like that, it's a good way of doing it. So still in our Xplane max cruise mode at full dry power, cruising across without afterburners. That's one of the things that made Concorde so effective, is that it didn't have to have afterburners to Supercruise. Fantastic then. So you're just going to repeat that process after every waypoint as you go across the Atlantic. So I will catch you for our descent preparations. If you have an Oceanic controller online, you will be contacting them with position reports. We don't, because we're not on Batsim for today, just for the general purposes of this tutorial. Right, fantastic guys, I will catch you as we begin our descent preparation. You can see on the map here where we are over the Atlantic. We're not bad, but we're not. We've got a long way to go. So I'll catch you all for descent preparation. See you in a bit guys, thanks very much, bye bye. Hello all, so we're not quite at our descent, top of descent yet. I just thought we'd quickly have a look at what's going on here. So we're just passing through waypoint 2 for waypoint 3. Of course, this is now after, so our actual waypoint passing through waypoint 12, will that be 13? Something like that. So we're not actually just back at the start, we're a long way through. So we hit 60,000 on a cruise there, and all I thought I'd let you know is when you hit 60,000, it automatically goes to hold. You immediately want to click auto throttle and Mach hold on, and you want to hit the Mach hold when you're doing about Mach 2.02 or so, and that will allow you to hold the max speed and not have to touch the throttles or whatever. So make sure you do that. During the cruise then I've just been monitoring the fuel settings and keeping an eye on our altitude. Make sure our waypoint's good. You can have a look on the iPad and that gives you like the route and everything, but we try to be realistic here. So if we have a look at our INS, you can see clearly on the INS that it's going very well. If you hear a big click like that, that's because if in my settings here on the Colimata Concorde, I have it so that it will automatically switch on night lighting. So when it goes slightly dark, that big click you hear is all the lights on the overhead turning on, and then immediately turn off again, just as the shadow comes across the sensor, I imagine. That's what happens. So don't be alarmed, that is just what's going on there. So then I've just been monitoring the content of fuel we have, where the position of cargo weight is. So this is our CG position here. It's basically moving along the length of the aircraft, front at the front, back at the back. And so you can see the weight is really moving back here to give us that slight nose-up attitude as we cruise along. So yeah, still holding Mach 2. You don't want to drop below Mach 2. And of course, yeah, that's quite a nice way to do it. So we have 6 minutes worth of afterburner thrust. So if you have to go around and use afterburners, then you can, and that's not a problem. So we're looking to start descending 60 miles before the waypoint Kesup, I believe it is. Kenda, waypoint Kenda. Kesup is back in the UK. Waypoint Kenda then on my list is, if we have a look at our INS down here, waypoint Kenda is waypoint, so let's scroll through, there it should be, waypoint 394, so that's waypoint 7 on this one. So when we hit waypoint 7, which is actual waypoint 16 on the list, we're going to, 60 miles before this waypoint, we're going to begin our descent. You'd be surprised how close it is to JFK, so we do need to watch that out. So yeah, you have to watch out for that descent 60 miles before. I'll catch you all for the descent preparation in a minute, so I'll see you guys in a bit. Hello everyone, this is descent preparation. So, we're looking to start descending into our arrival into John F. Kennedy. So we're looking to descend 60 miles before the waypoint Kenda. So we've got 180 now, we've got a bit of time. We're looking to arrive at the waypoint in 10 minutes, and that's of course in about half of that, so about 5 minutes. But firstly, we've got to sort of look at our arrival and how we're going to get down, because this part of the descent preparation is briefing. So, look down here to our tablet. We go to JFK, so I like to work from the inside out. So today we're going to be touching down runway 13 left. famous runway for the Concorde. It's quite short, requires a lot of braking, very difficult landing. But assuming all goes well, we will vacate end of the runway, Yankee Alpha, all the way back up, Yankee, crossing 22 right by the Bravo into the stands at Alpha 1. So, I then go, how are we going to land on 1-3? Okay, well let's have a look at the next chart. Our VOR 1-3 left. So, we hit this waypoint Assault. Now, not always possible to get Assault. We don't want to program it into our NS, because we can't. And there's no way Assault is just a waypoint. From SBS 105 112. So that tells you a bit of an idea where it is. But it's not always easy to know that waypoint. So what I do, programming Kanazi on 112.3, set the track of 043, because that's the heading from Assault to Kanazi. So that's the inbound direction you should be heading into Kanazi for. So you program in this. So you program in that. As we come across, so if I flick to the right, so you can see, where does it go up? Sorry, never seen that before. Apologies. As we come across, it's not actually displaying. As we come across, we're going to intercept this by flying in like this, and when it starts, we're going to sort of come in from this heading. When it starts to come across, we're then going to turn in. So we might not capture it just at the assault point, but we will get a nice gentle line into Kanazi, which is exactly what the arrival thinks you should be doing. Next is we've got to be level 3000 by the assault point or wherever we're entering, and then 1500 for the Kanazi VOR. From there we then fly on heading 041, so I've set 355 up at there, but it will then turn onto a heading of 041, so I tend to put it into the first officer's side so that you can get an idea of what we're going to be doing. We're tuning the Kennedy VOR on 115.9er. So we're tuning 115.9er. And from that point we should be 295 radial. When we pass through the 295 radial from it, at this point Dimmel, that is what Dimmel is on the 295 radial from Kennedy VOR, we begin our turn. There's a clear road into Kennedy, so we don't need to worry about having problems in regards to that. There's a clear road, we just got to follow the road, we go across it there. There's a hotel and a block of flats that we are looking for. So that is how we're going to make our way in. So we then go back out. Our waypoint, last waypoint on our INS is Cameron. So at Cameron, we're going to turn right, 355. So not quite north. North will take us up like this. 355, so across like this, because this point over here, see how if we zoom in on this one, we zoom in over here, there's a little bit of land under that Kennedy writing. That land extending across there is that land extending across there. So if we head 355, we should come in to the sort of edge of the land here. And then of course it'll be perfectly in line for our approach. So that's how we're going to fly it in like this. You would, if you're on VATSIM, you'll probably get vectors. Of course we're not on VATSIM, so we won't get vectors. So that's going to be the difficulty on how to do this. So that's what we're going to be looking out for. So that's basically your descent preparation. Now we're going to sort of go, well, what are we going to do to descend? Well, to descend, we're just going to throttle back to this point here with this little arrow. We're going to throttle back to there, and then we're going to look for 350 knots, and we're going to descend so that the speed comes back to 350. When the speed reaches 350, increase our descent rate so that we hold 350 knots. That's how we make our descent into Kennedy. It works out at a perfect rate of descent into Kennedy. In a stream I'm doing in a couple of days' time, we're going to Barbados. It's going to be a lot more difficult to descend at the right rate, so of course we'll have to actually do a calculation on how to do descent. But that's what we're going to do for today. So we're going to start our descent. We're going to go all the way down to 3,000, which I'm going to have tuned into the sorry, I haven't got it programmed. Sorry about that. We're going to program into the altitude over there, and we'll just go down. We're just going to go down at the right rate that brings us in to Kennedy. We're going to adjust our rate of descent based on visually how good we're looking in for descent. We've got 91 miles, 30 miles till our descent. So we're looking at this. We can see, we zoom out there, you can actually see the plane out in icon there. Because we go across them like this. Our route into Kennedy takes us. If I zoom in on here, you can actually see on the iPad the route we're taking. And go down and then across. So it's a fairly good route into Kennedy. So that is basically the gist of how it's going to go. As we've been able to descent, passing through 50,000 again, we're going to go back into the climb rating on the engine, and we're going to have to look at turning on our sort of heating systems again on the aircraft to allow us to descend properly. So yeah, that is what we're going to do. So I'll catch you all at the descent point, where we are then 60 miles. There goes 60 miles then. We're looking across, dragging down to 3,000. We're getting altitude acquire, allowing it to drop. The
Auto throttle off.
auto throttle goes off, and we're throttling back to that point on the arrows there. Drop the nose on the vertical speed, about 2,000 feet per minute descent rate. And that'll take us perfectly down into it. Cool, so there we go, dropping down 2,000 feet per minute, and we're just watching. We'll want to descend at a rate 2,000 feet per minute at first that allows the speed to drop, because we do want the speed to start dialing back. What we don't want is for the speed to completely disappear as we descend. So, we're allowing the speed to drop off now, as it is, down to 58,000 feet. Perfect descent rates there. Allowing the speed to drop off. We're looking for the 350 knots to come into a minute there. And you can see we're through the, not quite through the waypoint Kenda, but we're about to start making that right turn. If you're flying in a group, or if you're flying, sorry, not flying in a group, if you're flying Concorde on VATSIM, as I often do, you will often get a call from a controller telling you that you make a left turn, a right turn. So just continue following this principle. If they tell you descend 240, do it by this. When you get down to, yeah, about, you'll see, but when we get down to about 20, 45, 40,000 feet, you actually are going to sort of start descending and turn on the throttle and allow the throttle just to move to wherever position it needs to be based on the speed you've asked it to do. And don't worry about your descent rate, and don't worry about doing it this way, but start off our descent, we always do it this way, as it gives us a sort of baseline to work with, and till you're subsonic, you want to descend like this, because it allows the aircraft to descend at the proper rate, so it doesn't stall, or doesn't do anything like that. Cool. So, the temperature's going to start dropping again now, so we're down to about 122 degrees on the skin outside the aircraft, because we're no longer twice speed us out, we're now down to 1.7. So we have a look at our deceleration checklist. The seatbelt sounds need to go on. We throttle back slowly, and we're going to trim to descent. I tend to wait to trim to descent just a little bit longer, because you see, the nose is still flat at this point. When you trim for descent, the fuel is going to suddenly start trimming forward, and so you have to push the nose further. The nose is going to start having to drop, but of course, as you do speed, the nose will climb, because it's a delta wing, so that by trimming for descent, you sort of keep level. But at the moment, the nose is pretty level, so there's no need to trim it all forward. It's starting to rise a little bit, so you just got to sort of keep the nose level, and by doing so, you change your trim. So we're trimmed for flight the whole way across, but then at this point, as we start to make that judgment that it's time to trim for descent based on the fact that our nose is having to climb to maintain descent rate, it's time to trim for descent. And then, of course, trim for landing under 10,000 feet. But we'll see that all as we go in now. Also, 54,000 feet, you see we're down to Mach 1.6, and there we go. We're turning onto our next waypoint for today, which is waypoint, pardon me, I'll find it on the checklist. Waypoint Linnd, coordinates 3924.607.142.6 west. So that is a waypoint that's just after Kenda, and you're expected at this point to still be very high, very fast. So that's all set up. The Kennedy controllers know about Concorde and know that it flies these routes. So if you're by yourself, they'll let you fly up to Cameron, and then from Cameron, or from the next waypoint, sorry, after Linnd, they will allow you to, they will give you vectors based on where they want to send you for which runway. So based on the waypoint Owens, which is the one after Linnd, when you hit Owens, they then tend to give you vectors from there to any waypoint you're going to. Or if you're flying in 1-3 left, 1-3 right, like we are, then they won't give you vectors and just allow you to fly it, but giving you all the proper clearances and everything. Normally how it works, it can change, you know, depending on whatever factors there are that day, but that is normally how it's going to work. So there's 350 knots or so, so we're going to increase our descent rate, but we hold 350. So yeah, we're going to increase our descent rate a little bit, because you see our speed is below 350. We're matching our descent rate to hold 350 knots, so a little bit more then. A little bit more, still not 350 yet. Dropping down a little bit. There you go, so the speed's actually holding pretty still. So that means we found the right descent rate to hold speed. So that means we're just going to increase by one dot, one noise, one little click more to let it build back up to 350, and then we'll go up by one to hold when we hit 350 knots. So the nose is level at this point, so I don't want to trim for descent because it will rock the whole boat around. But there's 50,000 feet, so we're now going to go back into the climb rating on our engines, and we'll start to switch on our pressure static meters. Because the temperature is now down to 100 degrees outside. So maybe a little bit too early for the heaters, but you can turn them on now, and they will they'll warm up by the time we get to the point where we need them. 5A and 7A are still off, but there with the ramps. We're having a look down here to see that the ramps have completely almost come back in, as we're now going back down into the realms of subsonic flight. 347 knots then, that's alright. It's close.
Fuel status, 20 tons.
There you go. Telling me caution to see that the fuel status is 20 tons. It's telling me no need to be cautious. That's because Concorde engineer doesn't like to have very low fuel. So that's what he's doing. No real cause for alarm at this point. It's all pretty good. Edit that out. Edit that out, that's good. Good, okay, so now 1.24, so there's 350 knots, so we're going to go back up by one. Maybe up by two. Just hold that 350 knots level where we want it to be. The nose is pretty far full. We're going to trim for descent now as we are going down. Flight engineer, trim for descent, that's where we have to go. Flight engineer, trim for descent.
Fuel trim to descent.
So the nose is going to rock around there. So having to pitch up to hold the point of attitude that we were at. By pitching up, reduce our descent rate. There we go, back to where we wanted it. Cool. So you see the speeds increase slightly, so we're just going to pitch up a little bit more then. We've got quite a long way to go to JFK, so there's no need to panic that you're too high or anything. Just keep descending as you are. It should be fine. And then of course when we hit Cameron, we're going to switch from INS navigation to the heading mode here and click track heading, which we'll see in a bit. So we're about to go back into subsonic flight. So below subsonic flight, 384 knots is your maximum speed you can do. So you don't want to be any faster than 384, otherwise you won't slow down to subsonic unless you're down below 29,000. So make sure all the lights that should be are on, all the navigation aids should be on, and we've got to check the Kennedy altimeter, which I'm just going to do by googling over here. METAR. So if you just go into any Windows or search bar, search METAR KJFK, and you get the METAR up there, which for here is 29075. That's now the METAR, so QNH, so then we just go into the aircraft 29er, and then we're going to dial it in, 75. Because we've got no ATC, I know I'm descending straight down, so I can tune it in at this point. Normally you'd have to wait till the transition altitude, which in the US is 180. And if you're also on VATSIM, you need to consider now that you're going into New York airspace, your call sign is no longer Speedbird Concorde 1, Speedbird Concorde 1 Heavy, because of the American FAA radio signs. So yeah, remember it's now FAA, so it's Kennedy Heavy. The winds at this point are fairly negligible. We've got 0 knots, gusting to 2 knots, so we're happy to go into 1-3 left. There's no crosswind or anything, so that's fine. So we'll pitch up slightly there because we're just above 350 knots. There's 36,000. So we'll keep descending as we are with this amount of throttle. When you notice that you're having to descend really shallow with this amount of power on, you can back off the throttle and descend at your own rate. But because if you're flying into 1-3 left, this way of putting the throttle to this percentage and just descending at this rate and everything is designed for runway 13 left. So it's designed for you to be using 13 left runway arrival, and so it should descend you at perfect rate for all the waypoints you need to be at. But of course, if you're going into like runway 31, 13, then of course it won't descend you at the right rate. So just change it depending on where you are. I'm at 1.3, we're about to go down into the subsonic realms of flying Concorde again. It definitely is a beast that prefers to be supersonic, so if you're ever going to fly this not on the JFK to Heathrow route, try to go supersonic if you can. Of course, if you're going over land, say, don't, you're not allowed to, but do try and get it supersonic. It's not a very efficient plane below the sound barrier. It really doesn't behave very well. Not sure why descent rate is decreasing. I've asked for a little bit more. Oh, there you go. Speed. See that suddenly jumped a bit. That is that's a sign that we now need to stop descending via this method, engage the auto throttle, and actually descend at our own sort of pace. So there we go. We're no longer supersonic. We're now down into the subsonic area of Concorde. So I guess we'll go RCO, acquire 350 knots, let it slow down and maintain this descent rate, because we got a fair distance, about 50 miles or so, to go to Cameron. And reaching Cameron, we then got about 30 miles or so to the airport. That's good. Well, there you go, you can see the bit of water vapour and things coming off the top of the wings. And there's contrails and stuff breaking off the engines there, causing a big sort of condensation behind us. Just as you sort of slow down, that was us going down into subsonic, I reckon. The bit of water vapour and stuff on the thing. I never showed you the back of the cabin in Concorde. You go have a look at my streams, you'll see them on there. Yeah, it's not for this video, it's a tutorial, of course. It's holding 350 knots, we're holding our descent rate. There's 29,000. 29,000 is where Concorde is most efficient, fuel burning wise. Doing the Supercruise is not very efficient at fuel burning, but prefers to be up there. But this is 29,000, this is where it's most efficient then for fuel. So if you could, you would hold this altitude for a little bit longer. If you descended too early, knew you'd descended too early, you'd hold at 29,000 for a little bit longer, because that is the place where you burn as little fuel as possible. At this point, I can have a look at my fuel gauge. I can see I've got 18 tons of fuel left. So you want to be going over to aircraft, and you want to be having a look at your gross max landing weight, which is 111 tons, and a current gross weight, which is 105 tons for us. So we know that we are safe to land by this point, because I've burned a nice amount of fuel. Just for your information, I put in 86.6 tons of fuel in for this flight, and that takes us perfectly to the amount of fuel we need to be. So because we departed at 10:30 British time, it's only 9:53 back in the United States. I think I departed slightly later than well. So Concorde, of course, would really you'd arrive before you departed. So if we don't arrive before we departed, we know that I did not quite depart at the right time. Looking then for our minimums on here, we've got 800 as the minimums. So we're just going to get this dial, you grab it, and you dial it up to 800. Superb. You can't do it by using your mouse wheel, you have to drag it, so it can be a bit of a pain. You want to start on the first officer's side too. About there. So there's Mach 0.84, so we're definitely subsonic. Going down. Don't just because you're subsonic doesn't mean you should lower the nose. The nose is about 300 knots, and below 10,000 is for the nose. So do not just drop the nose because you're subsonic. You'll you'll rip the plane to pieces. So that's not good. So leave the nose up. Nose stays up for quite a while. So we can reduce our descent rate slightly if we want to, because we've got a fair bit of time to go, and we're descending slightly too quickly. So we just drop the descent rate a little bit, because it looks like, as I said, I might have made a rookie error there, because you think, oh wow, you've got a long way to JFK, but of course you've got to be 3,000 by JFK. We're 24, we've got 20,000 feet to lose in about 70 miles or so. So there's the turn. We're now heading towards Cameron. We're through the waypoint Owens. If you were going to any other runway, you'd probably have turned right at this point. But we're now going to Owens. Sorry, we're now going to 13 left. So we'll just continue on this heading. Superb. So we're looking temperature. 81 degrees. So the heaters are all on now at this point. The drain master heaters stay on the whole flight. Wing anti-ice, wing and intake anti-ice, it's not necessary to turn them on. We don't need anti-icing as such, we just need the heaters on. As the aircraft requires heating for anything below about 50 degrees. So you want to turn on those heaters. And then if we have a look back in the engineers panel, we can see the ramps are fully retracted there. The dials are back in. And on here we got the 5A and 7A on, off, and the pumps are in the auto position, so they know what they're doing. The engines are still in the flyover position. They can go to the normal position there. I believe they should have done normal a little bit earlier, so I do apologise, I have missed that. Down to Mach 0.78. Again, there's Cameron, 21,000 feet at this point. We've got a bit of time. So we set our minimums up there. We set the QNH, the local QNH, just because we rewind it to the QNH actual. We're a lot higher than we said we are. So back to 29075. Got to zoom in and set it. 29075. There's Cameron. At Cameron, you're supposed to be level 110, so we are a little bit high. I'm going to decrease our descent rate a little bit. We've got 37 nautical miles or so to go. We'll drop it down a little bit more. 37 miles by Cameron. Sorry, 110 by Cameron, and we've got 37 miles to Cameron. Do not panic. It can, if Concorde needs to, it can descend really quickly. Because, of course, what we can do in Concorde, we can deploy the reverser caps, which is quite cool. So if you need to descend really quickly... Oh, don't mean to do that. If you need to descend really quickly, you can drop out the reverse caps, not the reverse thrust. It's an idle power, but the reverse caps go out, so that any air coming into the engines 2 and 3, where the reverse caps deploy from, is diverted back forward, helping to slow you down, even if the reverse thrust is not actually going forward. It really makes a massive rate, change descent rate, because you can descend at about 7,000 feet per minute without gaining speed, which is quite amazing. So they know it's quite a trick, little neat trick of Concorde. It can descend very quickly if need be. For instance, here we've just whacked our descent rate, and we're probably going to be too early, too low into Cameron if I'd left it at that. So we'll pitch it back up again there. I had a little moment of panic, so I descended a little bit faster. So it's just about managing the descent rate. You know, we're 16,000 feet, descending 2,000 feet a minute, and if we look at our speed and distance for Cameron, 4 minutes, and we'll be at Cameron. We got 3,000. We get 2,000 feet a minute, 16,000, 3 minutes to be level 110. Sorry, level 10,000 that is as well. So we can go below 2,000 feet per minute descent rate, and that should be nicely 110 at Cameron. You want to be at 1,700. Quite an easy little calculation I did in my head there. I didn't do it very well. But that's the sort of thing you could do when you're going between waypoint to waypoint. When you start going to the VORs, you don't get distance time for that VOR. You just get a readout here for the DME1. So there you go, it's picking up the Canarsie. If we switch to RAD, you can see there it's picking up Canarsie VOR. It's picking up the Canarsie VOR already. And over on the first officer side, it is picking up JFK. So, yeah. Again, of course, I have to mention this every time I'm using it. I'm using TrackIR today. So if you want to find information about it, it's TrackIR version 5. The link for it will be in the description. It's really helpful. It allows me to look around the flight deck. It does cause some issues you've probably noticed during the video. I'm suddenly looking back here, whatever. That's just because I'm moving around my head in real life, and it's tracking the movement, so it will just sort of move around. So I really recommend getting it. I got it not too long ago, and it's almost changed my flight simming world. It's really, really helpful. So I do recommend getting it. So 3 minutes to go now. We're through the 13,000 feet mark. So we now need to turn on the exterior lights. So the landing lights go on. Let's make sure the taxi lights go off. Extend, extend. When they go solid, they're extended, extended, and extended. You have a look outside now, you see the big white glowing patch. That's the landing light that's going on. Some people, they're not required in the daytime, so don't put them on. I think you should put them on because, say you're under a cloud at Kenda when you're landing, you get the landing lights go onto the runway before you touch down, and it sort of helps to know if you're descending at the right rate. Good. So, through 110 there. We're not quite at Cameron yet, so we're going to slow up our descent rate a little bit more. But remember, we are still going to 3,000. We're not just going to 110, but 110 by Cameron is then estimated that you can descend to 3,000 by Canarsie. So, this is not too bad. Because I know there's no traffic out here today, as we're not on VATSIM. If you were on VATSIM, I'm not on VATSIM just to make it easier for tutorial purposes and recording the video. But if you were on VATSIM, you would of course be going right to Cameron. But because I know we're not, what I'm going to do is actually switch off INS navigation, switch to the RAD on both of these. Apologies there. Switch to the RAD nav on both of these and switch to track heading and track heading, and it's going to bring us right 355. We don't need to head to Cameron. There's no need to. If you're on VATSIM, of course, and it's in your flight plan, you'd have to request for a direct to. We're pretty much at Cameron, so we can go right now over to Canarsie. So notice I've got a heading in. We're not, see how we're following this. When the line is in the middle, you're pointing directly at the waypoint. So I've set the heading across here because, of course, we need to head across and then in. We can't head straight to it, otherwise we're pointing at all the wrong angles for the arrival. I'll show you. As an example here, you see our red aircraft down here somewhere. Turn it on. There it is, pointing at this sort of heading, so we're pointing up here. So we're pointing pretty much at assault, which will line us up perfectly for the arrival. Good. So what we can do now is, because it's tracked the heading round to 355, I can click heading hold, roll it to 041, and now I have 041 heading lined up for when we pass through Canarsie to then engage as our next heading. So it's quite a helpful little gadget. And then what I'm going to do is click VOR lock in a minute, when we get a little bit closer, when we get to the bottom of the chart page, VOR lock, and it'll then turn on and head straight towards Canarsie. What you've then got to do is remember, when it first captures the VOR lock, then, so you go VOR lock, then click heading hold again. If you leave it on heading VOR lock, it'll start doing circles around the VOR. You've got to remember to change it to VOR lock. It's quite important. So you change it to VOR lock, and we'll then go on to a heading of track heading again. So if you want to track heading will acquire, for example, something like this. If I click track heading now, it'll try and acquire onto this straight line here. But if you pull this out and click track heading, it'll go onto this heading. That's how you follow headings. Pull this dial out and click track heading. Probably already figured that out by now. Sorry, I've not been paying attention there. So we're through 10,000, so we're going to slow it up to 250 knots. Concorde, of course, would get high speed. I spoke to a controller the other day, and I requested high speed through 10,000, and he not officially allowed to allow that, but he did say you're allowed to do that in your own time. So therefore, we got high speed just through that 10,000, so that we can do exactly what we've done here. Almost at 7,000, begins slowing up because, of course, it is much more efficient to fly Concorde at higher speeds. Even just 350 knots compared to 250 knots is a more efficient way to fly the aircraft. So through 10,000, then under 300 knots, we drop the first stage of nose visor. So we'll just go for the visor at first. The noise gets a little bit louder in the flight deck. Just a little bit louder. And it's starting to capture. There's 250. So you now want to go through our checklist. Approach checklist. So the fuel gets trimmed to landing. Fuel trimmed to landing. Still watching our descent right there. We've got about 20 miles to the Kanazi waypoint. And we want to be 1,500 at Kanazi, 3,000 at Assault. So 6,500 now, so we're pretty much good. We've got the QNH set. The nose visor is down. We're going to set the engines to the approach. Now we're going to turn on our brake fans. You can see we've got, after this, our final touchdown, which we don't need. So that just gives us a basic idea that the lights and everything are as required. They are as required. We're now going to go for the nose as well as the visor down. See there. So what I tried to do is, if you go on outside view, which is kind of cheating, you want to match the nose so that the nose is horizontal with the horizon. So if it means you need to drop a nose stage, the horizontal, that's about good. So if you're doing 250 knots, you should have nose and visor down, because that means the visor is level. Sorry, the nose is level. And if you don't have the nose level, you put unnecessary stress on the aircraft. So if you were going 300 knots, say, but below 10,000, so you need to have the visor down so you can see, you'd probably not have the nose down and just the visor down. Something like that. It depends on where you are. Okay, so 5,000 feet. So I'm going to increase our descent rate a little bit, because I'd prefer to be 3,000 a little bit early than 3,000 a little bit late, especially on this kind of difficult arrival. Cool. So we can zoom in a little bit now, because we're starting to see our plane come in. So as we're coming over the charts there, 4,600 or so. This is not bad. We're going to hit VOR lock in a minute, just so we get a little bit closer. The line starts to come in. If you hit it now, sometimes it can turn a bit too early. Because of course it is just trying to capture that. No matter what, that becomes its one aim to do, is capture the VOR. So it can't, and it sometimes doesn't do it very well. So you watch out for that. The head heaters are all on, the seatbelt lights are on. The lights are extendable. Turn on the taxi lights and turn off lights when the gear go down. You don't have much time when the gear go down, so you do have to be quite snappy. As soon as you put the gear down, drop it into with the lights on. Otherwise you will find it quite difficult, because it's very busy when we get close on this arrival. After the update, Colimata Concorde has become fairly difficult to land. I'm not the best at it, but my recommendation is to not pitch above 10 degrees. So what I tend to do is set this limiter to just the bottom of it's 10 degrees, and I don't pitch. If you pitch above that, you will float down the runway. So in Concorde, they always have a slight bounce. Even in the real life, they have a slight bounce. It's very difficult to get in real life, very difficult to get a landing anywhere less than about 200 feet per minute. So I look for about 100, 250 feet per minute, and that's perfect. 250 feet per minute, that's pretty good. What you'll notice is that when you look on the replay mode, the wheels will hit the ground and maybe extend and sort of retract slightly around, but the body, they won't actually lift off the ground if you get about 250. So that, in my books, is perfect. We'll go VOR lock then as we're coming close to it. It's now going to turn on and try and capture Kanazi. Here we go. It's going to turn on any second now. There we go, starting to roll right. We can see the flight directors are turning us over right. Okay guys, I do apologise for that. I had a slight issue there with my simulator. That's why we couldn't see the ground from a while out, so I do apologise. I just had to do a quick restart, so I make no mistake of the fact that this is restarted. I've tried to improve everything and make it all the same.
Fuel status.
Okay guys, hello. So I do apologise, my sim had to be reset then. We had a slight issue with the, I say slight, we couldn't see the ground due to a weird Xplane bug. We couldn't see the ground until very late on. It would have been a full go around, so I do apologise for that. We're trimmed to landing still. We're in the same situation we were last time. coming in to Kanazi. So we're down at 1,500 a little bit earlier. Just that's the way things have turned out this time. So, Kanazi all tuned in. It's on VOR lock mode, so it should be turning towards the VOR. But what we're now going to do is begin to make our slowdown. So we're going to slow down 215 knots. I see a choir. We're going to drop our gear.
Gear coming down.
Lower the nose to the full position. There we go, full position on the nose, and we're going to turn on the lights. Lights go on, nose comes down to the full position.
Gear down.
There's fully locked on the Kanazi. Also, our heading needs to be 041. 041 is the next heading. We're going to be able to see the road this time, luckily. I kid you not, I could not see the road, I could not see anything. So I'm going to go heading hold, so I can tune in the next points here. So it's heading hold, we're on the right heading list. We locked the VOR, and I've just held the heading that we were on. So I can program in this information for the rest of the arrival. So, at the 295 point dammer, we begin our turn. So, at this point here, we start descending nice and gently. So, 041 track heading. Program in 100 feet. Choir. Descent about 800 feet per minute. So there it goes. We're going down. We're heading towards the waypoint down. We're going to slow up now to 200 knots for our final touchdown speed. There's the airport off to our right. You can see it over there, the airport complex. It's a tight turn, this Kanazi one. It's a difficult trick to master. So, down to 200 knots. I'm going to take manual control. I'm arming the afterburners in case of a go-around. You get loads and bags of power on the go-around stage in Concorde, especially because of those afterburners. So, the go-around is not a problem. Do not fear. You just got to watch your fuel. So if you've been better than I have and got more fuel, you'll be fine. I only have 7 tons at this point, so I do not have enough to make a full go-around. So for me, it is going to be land the aircraft. So we're going right. There's the road beneath us. So we're going right. We're going to go past it at this point here. I've got the charts beneath me here, just so I can see what's going on as we go around. So keeping the descent rate. So you see I'm going up and down on the side stick, trying to keep the descent rate. It's a fairly tight turn, so don't be afraid to keep the turn tight. There's the road on our right. We're supposed to go past it, and at this point we want to keep coming in, looking at the road, keeping it tight. There's the runway there in real life. I've made a little bit too tight of a turn here, so I'm just going to pitch up slightly because we are a bit low according to those pappies.
500 feet.
Level the nose here. It should be a continuous turn, really, levelling out 200 feet above the runway threshold. So we're not bad. There's the hotel complex. We're supposed to be over it. So we're not doing too badly. Not doing as badly as I'm making out. We're good.
400 feet.
400 feet there, so it's supposed to be 200, as I said, right over this runway threshold. So to be 400 at this point is not bad. I'm gently bringing it right across still. There's 300 feet, 280.
200 feet.
200 feet, perfectly. Auto throttle gets deactivated, no problem.
100
Idling the
feet.
throttles.
Auto throttle off.
Idling
50
throttles.
feet.
Pitching up 9, 10 degrees.
20.
I had to push the nose down slightly there. It wanted to float so much. That's what I do recommend. Just so there we go. Nice 210 feet per minute, as I said. 250, 200. That's a nice landing. There we go. We're not allowed to brake till 100 knots. 110, 100. Start braking manually. Brake it nicely. 60 knots. Reverse thrusters go off.
Reverser retracted.
Here's the end of the runway. Nicely where we said. We'd be right at the end of the runway. Certainly are. Concorde takes a while to stop. So, slowing it down. We don't want to turn too quick at all, so slowing it right down. We'll pitch the nose up and we'll turn off these annoying flashy lights. Not sure why the window just opened, but it did. Close it up again, and then we'll turn right. A little bit late on that turn there. It's going to be a little bit close, and then we've got to get the lights. As soon as we get off the runway, get the lights off, and begin our after landing checklist. So here we go, we're going right again all the way up here, as per our charts. Cool. Superb. That was actually not a bad landing. I'm quite impressed. It always is difficult to land, especially into JFK. 1-3 left, 1-3 right. When you're making this, don't go into 1-3 right. You can only make 1-3 left. I'm sure you saw by the tightness of the turn there. 1-3 right would be 1-3 right would be a bit crazy. Okay, at this point, if you're on ATC, you want to ask for clearance to cross this runway. but we're not, so we're happy to go straight across. We're now going to turn off our big lights, leaving the taxi turn-off lights and the taxi lights on. Because we're so light, we can shut down 2 of the engines, 2 of our 4 engines. We're going to shut down the 2 outboard engines, 1 and 4. There we go. We don't need to change the throttle. I've got a bit of throttle on here. I think I'm above the idle mark here. 75 N1. The speed's increasing slightly on this big, long stretch of taxiway. We're basically going right to the end. So I'm now going to, for these 2 outboards, make sure you turn off the gens. That's the middle position. And the hydraulics. And make sure you turn off the ones for the right engine, otherwise you'll suddenly lose all power. Cool. And then you can turn off their boost conditioning valves, or their air conditioning valves, sorry, as well. Cool. So if you have any questions, please do go ahead and ask. The taxi-in process is fairly simple. But again, looking just for the turn-in nose and everything. So, but if you do have any questions about anything we did during that flight today, then certainly ask them in the comments. As I said, I did have to do a quick restart, so that's why at the end there, suddenly it might change footage slightly. That is because I had to reset it due to an issue regarding. But we want to make sure here you disarm the afterburns. Just be going. You couldn't see the ground. It's an Xplane little bug I have sometimes. So. Sorry for that if that confused any of you when you were watching the footage. So you can then turn off the auto throttle for the 1 and 4 and their auto ignitions, and you leave it like that. You can turn off your pressure static heaters and ADS engine probe heaters. Basically doing all the stuff you did on the taxi out checklist, you're just reversing, because of course they're no longer needed. And go a nice nose view here. Looks very nice, taxiing along. So then here, we've got to go into the special BA stand, so we're going to slow down, go left and right. So because we're going left 90 degrees and right 90 degrees, we'll slow right down for this turn. Take it nice and slow. Do not want to go too fast. It's got very spindly landing gear. Very small little strut landing gear, Concorde, so you do not want to be going any more than 10 miles an hour whilst making turns. You could break them. So going right here, we've got to go in up there. You could go around the end and left. I decided it's faster to go right, left and right. And that's what we're doing. So please go ahead and hit the like and subscribe, and do join me on further flights. Now you can fly Concorde, hopefully, if you can fly Concorde through this tutorial series. I hope it helps. But if you can now fly Concorde, let me know in the comments. I always put a smile on my face to see that people have been able to fly something because of my tutorials. So please let me know. If you do have any questions, do ask. If you want to have a voice chat, join the Discord and message me through there. I'm normally on quite a lot, so you can see. So you can speak to me and ask me questions about how to fly, because I know it's always easier to have direct questioning. So please do go ask. We've got lots of people on there that know how to fly Concorde, and they'd be very happy to help. Right, coming into stand, then we're going to turn off the taxi lights 1, 2 and 3, so we don't blind whoever's in there. And basically, when you're coming into these stands, you can take any of them. Take 1, 2, 3 or 4. I normally take this one in here if it's not occupied. You can pretty much take any of them. They're the B is the BA terminal, so you can take any of the ones you want. They normally go in this one here in the middle here. So we'll go in there. Weird scenery, there's a bit of grass around the side, so that's not good. And then again, especially in the turn into the gate, make sure you turn about halfway, when the line's halfway on the window you turn, and then with the iPad you turn when it's on the iPad on that side. So they're halfway there. Swing her in. And then just keep the rate of turn, otherwise you get a bit of an overshoot, like I've just made a mistake there. Bit more power, bit more power. And allow it to roll around into the sun. There we go. Fantastic. Straight into the stand. I tend to go outside view. There's no stopping markers on my scenery for JFK. There's some nice scenery you can get, but I haven't got that, so there's no nice stopping markers. So there we go. Stop there. Look into the center console. Putting the parking brake on. Head into your aircraft selection of the GUI, doors and ground. Make sure you turn on your GPU, and you can open your doors. like so. Then you want to go onto the overhead panel and shut down engines 3 and 4. Lights are off, turn off your anti-collision and nav lights, and the seatbelt signs. Raise the nose. You should have done that before you turned off the engines, my bad. Yeah, she won't come up now because I've turned off the engines. So that's why you've got to make sure you do it as you turn it to stand. But sorry for that. Thank you all very much for watching. We're going to do some cool replays at the end of the touchdown, so stick around for that if you want to have a look at how that landing was. Not a bad landing. As I say, if you have any questions about the landing, I tried to explain it a bit, but I'm just sort of looking for that 9.5 degrees on the nose, and that gives you a pretty much perfect touchdown angle. So I'll see you for the replays. Thank you very much, everyone, and bye-bye from me.